For more than a decade, I've been building a life without really knowing where all of it would eventually lead. I was born and raised in Istanbul, Turkey, and today at 29 years old, I'm Turkish-Canadian and living in Toronto, where I work in the film industry as a visual effects artist. And until now, I worked on films and television, taught and mentored visual effects artists, and started multiple businesses. And in May 2026, I was fortunate enough to win a Canadian Screen Award for Best Visual Effects. Of course, I'm proud of these things, don't get me wrong, but they're also the easiest parts of my life to put into an introduction. You can fit them into a few sentences and make everything sound very intentional, right? And leave out most of what actually happened. The jobs I didn't get, the ideas that went nowhere, the money I wasted, the opportunities I almost missed. And the people, most importantly, who changed my direction, the relationships and the friendships that shaped me. Leaving Istanbul and starting again in Canada, and all those ordinary moments that seemed not so important until years later. So those are the stories I actually want to tell you, because life isn't a resume. We're gonna talk about career, money, businesses, relationships, family, and immigration. But I also want to talk about motorcycles, scuba diving, snowboarding, playing ice hockey, cigars, watches, traveling, and making things, and whatever else becomes part of my life along the way. So some of these things might sound completely unrelated, but that's kind of the point of this channel, okay? Looking backward, I've realized that life doesn't separate itself into categories as neatly as we do. What I mean by that, a hobby can introduce you to someone who changes your life. Okay? Something you learned for pure fun can unexpectedly become useful years later. And while something you were really convinced that really would matter can disappear completely. So you usually don't know which is which while it's happening. That's why I want to tell these stories chronologically. I want you to meet the people when I met them, see the interests when they first appeared, and understand the decisions with the information I actually had when I made them. Because, I don't want to look backward and pretend I always knew where I was going. I didn't. You don't get to watch the next episode before making the decision. You make the best decision you can with what you know, and then you live long enough to find out what it meant. And by the way, I'm not here to tell you how you should live your life, okay? I'm gonna tell you how I lived mine. I'll share the things I think I did well, and the mistakes I hope you can learn from without having to make them yourself. Sometimes we'll disagree. Sometimes I may tell you a story that I still don't completely understand myself. You can take whatever you need from my story and leave whatever you don't. And I also don't want every episode to become a life lesson. Some of these stories are funny, and some are ridiculous, and some are going to be very difficult for me to tell. But hopefully we'll laugh together, and when we eventually reach the harder parts, maybe we'll go through those together too. But I want to tell you this. My favorite part about starting this channel at 29 is that the story is not finished. So if we keep going long enough, eventually the timeline will catch up, right? So we'll go from Istanbul to Toronto, Basically, from being a kid who had no idea what he wanted to do to the life that I have today. And eventually, we'll arrive here. From that point forward, you and I will have the same information. I don't know what I'll accomplish, or what I'll get wrong, where my businesses or career will go, who I'll meet, or what my life will look like 10 years from now. We'll find out together. So this is not the story of a person who has figured everything out. It's my life, as I understand it so far, and told as honestly as I can tell it. If something in it helps you, take it, please. And if all you get is a good story and a laugh, I think that matters too. But before we find out where all of this is going, I should probably tell you how I got here. So let's start at the beginning. Welcome to my channel.